Welcome to your Family Math Talk assignment. In this assignment, you'll have the opportunity to come up with a presentation. I recommend slides. However, whatever platform you like to make your slides on, please do. But we're going to be doing Family Talk Math. And later on, you'll do one for science. But this one is Family Talk Math. So we're going to dive in to how we talk about math with families. It's important that you are always looking at the overview and learning materials before you dive into anything. So you can use Module 1 had a lot of great resources, but you can see here number sense, number concepts, number relationships, attributes, and family and math. I really want you to dive into family and math to highlight this project. You really need to do all of these readings and use these readings in your presentation. So it's important that you're doing these readings because you'll see in the assignment that it's really going to come through. I also have a family talk example from a past student here to show you the detail that I'm looking for. So it's important that you go into the module and you are always going to be using that Head Start Early Learning Outcome Framework to dive into math domains for birth to age 5 children. So you're going to think about how you will connect with children and families on math, and then really dive into how you will teach math to families. How is math presented in your classroom and why? So you are going to create your discussion plan, and this goes deep into the discussion. So your plan must include context of your classroom. So one thing that is really important, and I'm seeing more and more of this, is it seems like content's getting put into AI and then it's getting spit out and it's very generalized. Sometimes the formatting is really wonky, and then there's no actual rich reflection of your own teaching or work with children. So it's important that when you're looking at these prompts, you're thinking of your own teaching, how you're bringing reflection of your own classroom, your own space with children, and the families that you work with. That's huge. And really, when you use AI, I'm not against AI. I use a lot of AI for my own formatting, but all of this is in my own words, and I ask AI to help format it or make it clear. It's important that we're using AI as a tool and not using it to do our work for us. So, jumping in, I want you to use the context of your own classroom, thinking about the age, and then think how you build relationships with families. This is not generalized copy and paste from the content. It's how do you do all of this with the families that you work with? How do you build trust and relationships? How long does it take? When do you know it's time to connect with caregivers? Knowing when it's time for that math discussion. What are the signals families and classrooms give you? And how do you recognize when it's right? Again, this needs to be reflective of your teaching. Planning math discussions. When and how do you do them? How long will they take? Where and what to prepare in advance? Again, thinking about the children and families you work with. Culturally responsive teaching is heavy in our reading this week. You're going to use the reading to understand culturally responsive teaching, and you will add some of that information into this slide. However, listing strategies that you're going to use to connect with families should come from the course materials. But then you need to connect it to specific families you work with. So you're taking the research from this week and you're putting the families that you work with together to make a reflective idea of culturally responsive teaching. You need to have caregiver questions, write 5 thoughtful questions that open up not only their beliefs and practices, but relate that back to math. So maybe having open-ended questions on how you connect with families, like what do you do at nighttime? And then tying that open-ended question to, oh, you take a bath every night, maybe you can count. What are your beliefs and practices? Open-ended questions so you can hear them and then you can provide some feedback to them. Explaining math. So this is not just, we teach math, 1, 2, 3, we have blocks. This needs to be an in-depth dive into the course content. You saw that we had attributes, number concepts, bring research in to show families what that's like. Use the Head Start Early Learning Outcome Frameworks. You need to add the subdomains and you need to be specific. The next area should be play and materials. This isn't just a big long list. You should have a list, you should have pictures, you should define how these support math. So think college level presentation here. And then caregiver collaboration. Write 3 strategies you will use with the caregiver. So that maybe they can discover family math identities at home. Maybe these can be projects that the families can do with their children at home. And then building a big, stronger bridge between home and school. So these are all prompts that need to be in your presentation and slides. And then you just need to put the AI statement. So how did you use AI in creating your presentation? So you can see all of these prompts. I would just like 1 or 2 sentences just to say how you used AI. And then I used AI to help me create a slide-by-slide breakdown for you to make sure that you have everything you need. This goes through the slide-by-slide and gives you some examples of how you can do your either script, which are speaker notes for each slide, or a screencast, which is a voiceover. So these are my words, but I used AI to help me show how you could do it slide by slide. That is one example of me being honest about how I used AI. So once you have your slides, you need to decide, am I going to make a screencast or am I going to put notes in each slide to show my script or details? So I'll show you an example of, this is a presentation I made. It is not of this topic, but here are my notes. So I have my slide and my notes. So you can see, and as I go down, my notes are pretty thorough because I gave this presentation at a conference. So you can see that your notes and your slides should be pretty thorough, and here's an example of the detail and what I'm looking for. So this is a big assignment. You also want to make sure you're getting in and looking at the rubric. And this is where 70 points. So we're not looking for a really basic presentation. We're looking for a full, detailed, reflected presentation. And here is a great example by a student that's already been completed. If you have any questions, please reach out. We are always here to help.